All
Dave,
right.
may I ask, did you have any conversation with Leah?
The last I talked to her, she was going to get on.
Yeah, I know that Leah and Dawn had been talking about your poor internet connection. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
If I need to run over to the town hall, I'd be glad to do that.
No, I did contact her and let her know that we were not going to be meeting. I called to say we might be, and then I called to say cancel that. So
Okay, great. I don't want to leave her hanging if I need to be there.
No. She knows not to go there tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We'll keep an eye out for her and we'll get going. It seems to be taking a while to get people to get from the waiting room in. It's probably a Zoom thing. So I'm going to keep my eye on it. And I think, yeah, we'll keep our eye on it.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, Rob. I will call the meeting to order at 7:03, and I'll remind everyone to please mute yourself unless you're talking. I will give you plenty of time to come off mute before we start with a conversation. And we will begin the process by me doing a little roll call. So I've got Tom.
Yes.
Thanks, Tom. I've got Dawn. I just heard from her. Steve.
Hello.
There you are. Mike.
Yes, sir.
And Sandy.
Here.
All right. And I think Leah will join us when she can. All right. So we have the agenda before us that you all received. That is the one that has the 2 new business items and then communication. So any changes to that agenda from anyone? Hearing none, I will move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. All right, Tom, you're the first to vote. Tom.
Yes.
Dawn. Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Mike.
Yes.
Sandy.
Yes.
All right, motion is adopted and the agenda is adopted. Next, we move to our approval of the minutes for August 26th. Those were in your packet. Hopefully you're able to review those and get back to Dawn if there were any changes. Any other changes or issues, Dawn or anyone else?
No.
Okay, I'm admitting Leah right now so that she'll be able to join. Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Moved by Tom, seconded by
Second.
myself. Oh, seconded by Steve. Steve jumped in there. So Tom, Steve, Mr. Barris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Mike,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
minutes are approved. And Leah, I see that you have joined us. She'll get in and get off. I won't bother you till we get to the next one. Public comment. This is the area of our agenda where we take a few minutes of comment from a person who has anything to bring up that's not on the agenda. Tonight's agenda includes the Chelsea Square 81 unit apartment complex final site plan and the amendment of a final site plan for the Chelsea Hillcrest project. Anything not related to those 2 items that someone wants to bring up this evening. And I will pause for you to either raise your hand virtually via Zoom or just yell at me. I think I heard someone trying to say something. And going once, twice. Everyone is just here to see the amazing way we do planning commission meetings, which I'm starting to think we're the most popular game in town. So I will move on from public comment and go to unfinished business. No unfinished business tonight. New business. Like I said, we have 2 items on new business tonight. We'll start out with a public hearing on the final site plan for the Chelsea Square project. So planning commission members know we do have Attorney Thal here with us. We have I believe our engineer is here with us, making sure I'm not misspeaking, but I think I saw her come through. And we, of course, have Carol. So everyone's here to answer questions. And we have our board members here, which we all have to be on our best behavior. That includes you, Mike. So we will start with opening the public hearing on the Chelsea Square 81 unit project. Usually I will ask if the applicant wants to speak first and then go through public comment, or if the applicant wants to hold their comments until public comment, we'll do the public first. So who is representing the applicant on Chelsea Square this evening?
David, may I just interrupt very quickly to ask Rod Branham to help me yet again with the attendance this evening, please?
All taken care of, Don.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don, for.
Yeah, I got some too, Don, if you need them.
Okay, Chelsea Square. Who do we have here for Chelsea Square?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Dan Leclerc from Green Tech Engineering.
Hey, Dan.
We'll go ahead and wait until after public comments are done.
Okay, sounds good, Dan. All right, anyone from the public have anything to comment on for the Chelsea Square 81 unit complex? This is the final site plan. We dealt with the preliminary site plan a few months ago. I'm going to pause for a bit. Okay. Everyone's here for the second one. Not hearing anything. I will, if you do have something, we'll definitely come back to you. Just raise your hand on Zoom. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Dan and let him give an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Leclerc with Green Tech Engineering. I see Jack Knowles is with me tonight. We're here to answer any questions. Looking to see if our architect is on board, and I'm not sure if he is. Yeah. Thank you for letting us go before you tonight and present via Zoom. Jack's group picked this project up a few months ago, and we came before you with a preliminary site plan. And we've been working very diligently over the last couple months, getting the final engineers based on consultant review and Carol's review, and we've got everything put together and presented to you from their reviews. The engineering review dated September 13th, and then we also had another review via email, which was right around the same date from Ted Erickson from September 13th. And we responded to each of those comments. There was a couple of the comments that were very detailed engineering in nature. Won't get into all the mud because a lot of it's very technical. But with respect to the site plan, the layout, the geometrics, we feel that we've done a very good job in addressing all of the Carol's comments as well as Sue's. And we're humbly requesting tonight that you folks allow us to move forward by granting final site plan approval contingent upon Sue's review of the final engineering documents. And with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Dan. And before we get to questions from members, just two things to note from members. I think CAF is on tonight too, and also our Public Works, Sewer and Water folks. So a lot of folks here to answer questions, but we'll get to that as soon as the public hearing part is done. I do want to open it one more time for the public, for anyone not associated with the project, or maybe even someone else on the project that wants to speak, or the public. If not, I will move on to.
Dave,
Yes, Craig,
you can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay, did you receive some email addressing this from the Chelsea Springs board?
That was related to Hillcrest. Maybe I missed on Square. Was there one on Square?
Yes, there was also.
Mr. Chairman?
Lynn Evans, Chelsea Springs Board of Directors. We did send in a comment with a concern on the barricade, that there's kind of the eyelet area where the fire barricade is going to go. And the left-hand portion of that kind of eyelet drive was, we did put in a request that it be closed up around the barricade, perhaps with a berm or something, so that folks couldn't just drive around the barricade and come down onto Chelsea Springs roads. You know, we don't have a problem with the fire barricade, but transit around that would be a problem for us. And so if that could be closed in, that would be great.
I remember now, Linda. I do have that here. Too many
Thanks.
papers. Thank you. Jack, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate that comment. Nobody wants to see cars going through there. Certainly we don't. So, we will be taking some measures to address that. I'm honestly, at this moment, I'm not sure what it is, whether it's going to be landscaping, whether it be a berm or a fence, but there will be some measure to thwart anyone who has those thoughts.
Okay.
Great, thanks. That would be good. We just saw that second half of the eyelet as a way to kind of
Oh, yeah,
around it.
agreed.
Yeah, I drove through there the other day and checked that out after reading your email, and I agree. I certainly could see people doing that. So thank you. Other members of the public on this issue? Otherwise, we'll get into the meat of this. Hearing any? All right, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to planning commission discussion of the Chelsea Square project. So at this point, I think I'll start off by just saying, yes, there was some very detailed commentary going back and forth between our engineers and Green Tech. And it's something I like to see, although, boy, there was a lot of it this time. But I think the Midwestern Consulting Report of September 13th that then you responded to was great, that by the 22nd, we were able to get a follow-up from Midwestern Consulting pretty much saying that we were able to check off all those items, which is great. And I want to make sure in my notes, I have that right. Any planning commission members have any questions on the back and forth between the engineers and Sue Dickinson's final letter dated September 22nd? Dawn, anybody? Sometimes Dawn's muted. Give me a second. And Leah, can you hear me now? Are you on?
Yes, I can.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, hearing nothing on the engineering portion, I do want to make note of the letter we received from the fire authority, and they're on tonight. So again, planning commission members, any questions on their note? It looks like they said that the plan adheres to the fire code, and they had two reminders that we see in a lot of their letters back and forth. Any questions, comments from planning commission members? I love it. The planning commission members are being so good because the board is on watching. No, just kidding. All right, so hearing nothing on that, we've also received our report from Carol. Carol, any comments that you have from your items?
Dave, I got one question.
No, and I did the report, you got it, and I did not address the fact that they did provide a photometric plan, and they did do some updating on the landscaping plan, which I did not acknowledge in an update.
Okay, I was going to ask about the photometric. Okay, cool. I think that was Mike. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, just 1.14 in the letter. There was issues with the title work and legal descriptions. I don't know if Mr. Thal's online, if there's any risk if we approve this tonight with those things outstanding.
So what were the issues that were identified in that regard?
It didn't, pinpoint exactly what it was. It just says it was a general statement. It says we're in the process of working at the title company, cleaned up the legal description and title works for the site.
Mr. Chair, if I may address that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Sure. I think the revised set, which includes the Alta survey, most likely address that question. There's, I'll be talking with your assessor shortly. There's the legal description for the main parcel, the larger parcel. It's described in a couple of different ways, and then it was described by a survey by Washington Engineering a number of years ago. We're just trying to clean it up with the title company, which description they're going to use. They both describe the same property. They just describe it in different ways. So we're trying to get them to eliminate one of those descriptions. And I want to check with your assessor and see if we can get her on board also to conform with getting this one description describing the property. But ultimately, we're going to be combining these two properties into a single property, which will then again alter that.
So that actually begs my question, which was on the combination. And I don't know if you want to answer that too, Attorney Thal, but I was just asking what we would have to do since these haven't been officially combined yet.
Yeah, I would just think, I mean, it's fine that if they're not combined, but I mean, certainly if they want to combine them, that's great. They have a right to do that.
Yeah.
And so I would just suggest that if the board wants to move forward with approval tonight, that just be subject to legal approval of the title work and legal description for the property.
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't combined them because we don't want to combine them without before we get site plan approval. Once we get site plan approval from the board, you know, that would be, I assume, would probably be a condition of approval from the board, but we will combine them after that time.
Okay. Just make a note. All right. That makes sense. Mike, does that
No,
answer your question?
Yeah, just the other comment I would make is in regards to the barriers brought up by the residents. I'd like to see some sort of a contingency that gets into their final engineering drawings.
So can I ask you a question on that? Is this the barrier that goes into Chelsea, between Chelsea Springs, the roadway that leads to Chelsea Springs? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I
Yes,
believe
it
so.
is. It is. There's a gravel driveway that connects Chelsea Springs to the north and ties into an existing roadway.
Is it
The road commission and the fire department both want that there for emergencies. But we
So-
also want to close that down and keep it gated so that it's not a free flow of traffic through the two. So we're putting a gate with a Knox box, and the fire department will have a key to it.
Right.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with that. You know, you're not going to be able to just put some type of berm or something that emergency services can't get through. So I
Right.
think the requirement would be some type of gating system with a Knox box so that emergency services can access in between the projects.
Right. That's what's planned.
Yeah, and then this was just fixing some way of fixing sort of next to the gate so that people don't subvert the gate, right? I mean,
Right.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions from planning commission members on those issues or others? Where I'm open to anything at this point. Otherwise, we'll start going through our standards of review. All right, well, let's go through the standards of review. And for the planning commission members, Carol has them on page 7 of her report. The first standard is the final site plan conforms to the preliminary site plan as approved, including the conditions, which are also listed in Carol's report. Or actually, they're listed on the minutes that she provided. If you remember from preliminary site plan approval, we had sidewalks on both sides of the street for the land development standards. We had guest parking spaces, 10 foot by 20 foot, which both of those issues were noted in the plans. We had the change in noting the actual zoning of that district, which is industrial / consent judgment property. And then legal review, the final site plan, which is actually what Attorney Fall just mentioned. So that is conforming to the conditions of preliminary site plan. The plan meets all applicable standards. These next few are from the letters that we've received, the township fire, water supply. I think we did receive something from sewer and water on this. If I'm mistaken, yell at me, Carol, but I think we did. And then proposed development will not cause erosion, sediment problems. These are all what was in the engineering review, the drainage plan. I'm going through these fairly quickly. Just stop me if you have a question, members. Number 6, the development is coordinated with the improvements in other developments in the general vicinity. We certainly have several of those going on right now. Lighting plan, as Carol noted. Outdoor storage. Remind me, these units have their own garbage, right?
Correct.
Okay. Grading or filling will not destroy the character of the property. Parking layout, we went through that with this preliminary. And also one of our conditions is always approval of all government agency requirements, state and local. And then, of course, the plan provides the extension of public streets, which we just talked about, where applicable in this case. It's tied into the main street. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns on the development standards of review or the final site plan standards of review? Sorry. All right, hearing none. I think that so far I have noted a couple of items for the, whether you want to approve, we would approve with conditions. First condition is always state and local agencies approval to meet prior to, let's see, all state and local agency approvals prior to the zoning permit. And then we talked about fixing some of the landscaping or otherwise to prevent traffic from going around the barricade with the Knox box. We talked about legal approval or legal review and approval of the final title work. And then I do have a quick question. Is there going to be an on-site manager at this facility, Jack?
Most likely, there would be someone representing the owner on site. Yeah.
Okay. And would that be in the development agreement? Would you state it there? Or?
Well, I don't want to necessarily be held to that. I mean, the plan is, that's the ideal situation.
Right.
But to hold us to that in a development agreement, I don't know if that's really.
Yeah, it wasn't a big issue. I just
Sure.
was looking at the size of the development.
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's got to be a manager. Okay.
Well, it's our advantage to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Those are the conditions I had, the legal review, the issue around the barricade and the state and local agency approvals. Anything else from planning commission members? Dawn, do you have an understanding of those or? There's Dawn.
Yes, I do. Approved with conditions, state and local agency approvals prior to zoning permit, landscaping around the and traffic around the gate where a lockbox will be, legal review of the title, on-site manager, not necessarily designated in the development agreement, but it is to their advantage to have a manager on site.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need the manager piece in the conditions. So
Do not need that. Okay.
no, I don't think so.
All right. Thank you.
Anything I'm missing? Carol, Attorney Thal? If not, okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, then we need a motion to approve the final site plan for Chelsea Square with the following.
Oh, Dave?
condition- Yes,
Dave,
Yes.
if I may, there might be one in Sue Dickinson's report. Recommend that the planning commission consider approving the site plan contingent on them revising the plans to meet the LDS requirements in our review letter. Is that a condition or not?
I think they handled those based on, but I want to make sure. I mean, we can do it because I think you did hit them, right?
Mr.
The
Oh,
letter came yesterday, Dave.
yeah, is that Sue? I'll let
Yes,
Sue go
yes,
first.
I'm sorry. If I could just interject there, the many of the issues were changed on the revised plans. Like Dan was saying, the profiles were not changed yet, and then all the, detailed engineering things were not able to be changed yet. But I think just by saying that that the plans are contingent upon our reviews, I think handles that issue.
No,
Ours, meaning yours, Sue. Your
Yes,
review.
yes,
Thank
my
you.
review, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
yeah, we would just say contingent upon the, on a final review and approval by our engineer and for land development standards.
Yep.
Something like that. Okay.
That's good.
All right. So I don't want to have to repeat all that, but I will. So we will have a motion. Do I have someone who wants to make the motion? I'll make the motion. The chair moves to approve the Chelsea Square 81 unit apartment complex, conditional on the legal review and approval of the title work, condition upon the fixing of traffic being able to subvert the gate with the knock box, and conditional upon all state and local agencies approvals prior to zoning permit issuance. And finally, conditional upon final review by our engineers. And those are the conditions I have, and that's the motion I have.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mike. Dawn, one last check. Did it all make sense?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second in front of us on the floor. Any final discussion? Sandy, you good?
Yes.
I ask you because you're up on my screen. Oh, yes, there is a development agreement with the board that'll be part of this too. So we should probably add that as a condition on final approval of development agreement by the township board. I always add that, so thank you. It's good. All right. Hearing no other discussion, we have a motion and a second for approval. I will do a roll call vote. Tom,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Mike,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
motion is adopted unanimously.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
Jack. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will go on to our next item of business, which is another site plan. So this time we have a request to amend the final site plan of the 17-unit condominium project known as Chelsea Hillcrest. And the request to amend is to amend two issues. One is the getting rid of the need for sidewalks through this little loop. And then the second is am I calling it a berm? No, I'm calling it a retaining wall. All right. Let me get my notes, but that is what I have. Does the applicant want to speak first or wait till public comment or both? And who's representing tonight? I saw Joe was on, but I don't know if you're,
I'm here.
okay, Joe.
I met with Sue. I spoke with Sue Dickinson at length about the retaining wall. I met with my engineer, Kathy Knief, on site. We discussed the retaining wall and the sidewalks. I think we have a pretty good understanding of what we need to do. So if anybody has any questions, I can address it, but Kathy Knief can address it, or Sue Dickinson. We're all on the same page, I believe.
Okay, well, we'll start off with public comment because I know there's folks here from public that probably want to speak on this issue. So I am going to open up because of the public hearing. I'll open up to the public and we'll use the same process, which is raise your hand or speak up. Anyone from Chelsea Springs that wants to speak? From the board or?
Yes, Chairman, Edward Zelmansky here, legal counsel for Chelsea Springs. And want to give all due deference to anybody who is actually a resident of Chelsea Hillcrest that wants to address their issues. But I simply want to emphasize with regard to Chelsea Springs that this request to amend the final site plan does not change the conditions that are part of the approved development. The source of those conditions arises from joint use and maintenance agreement executed between Chelsea Springs and Chelsea Hillcrest on May 7th, 2018. And within that document, Chelsea Hillcrest is required to construct a berm in a manner that is mutually acceptable to Chelsea Hillcrest and Chelsea Springs across that portion of Duncan Drive where Chelsea Hillcrest and Chelsea Springs meet. This has not been constructed yet. We have seen no request to change that, and it's our expectation, of course, that the developer will comply with that requirement. I'd also like to emphasize to the board that the completion of that berm was part of the board's approval of the site plan, which was memorialized on October 25th, 2018. And at that time, you moved, Chairman Seitz, that the site plan be approved with conditions that there be a clear differentiation from Duncan Drive, which will be permanently blocked off between Chelsea Springs and Chelsea Hillcrest. There's no notice that that condition any relief is being sought from that condition, and we'll expect compliance. We know that there's to be a discussion between Chelsea Hillcrest and Chelsea Springs with regard to what form that berm will take. And of course, when Mr. Trupiano is ready, they'll be glad to sit down with him and work those details out.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And I will now, I thought I had a hand up. I don't see a hand up. Other members, I do have several communications that came in to us, which all the members do have. The first being, I do have a communication from Lynn Evans on that issue. We do have some emails regarding that tricky little area between Springs and Hillcrest. And I do have an email actually from a Hillcrest resident in favor of not having the sidewalks. Just trying to look through all the ones we do have. And just to let those folks know, we have them, they're in our hands, and all the planning commission members have them. Other comments? Sit with an awkward pause for a moment to allow people to come off mute. All right. My next live mic, I'm gonna create something for Zoom where you can just buzz the chair without buzzing anyone else. I think that'd be great.
Dave, this
yes,
is Joe.
Joe.
I don't know if I should respond to Ed with all respect to Ed and Chelsea Springs. I met with the fire chief, Eric Stanley, out on site on the 22nd at right around noon. And we walked the entire site. I got a letter from them, and that's why I reached out to him. That basically, and I'm sure that the planning commission members, the board has the same letter, the letter dated August 18th, states pretty clearly that they don't want any barricade on that road. So I don't know if you want to just put like a little speed bump in or something like that, but keep in mind in the language of that agreement, it says mutually acceptable to both parties. So it doesn't give a timeline, but with respect to public safety, I suggest that if they're going to put anything across there that differentiates the two sites, one being distinctively different from the other, even though they're both condominium sites, it's got to be something that an emergency vehicle can get through without any hesitation, would you say?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comment back, and I just, we'll get into that when we have our discussion here, because we're gonna go through the letters, including the one from the Chelsea Area Fire Authority, so. But any other public comment? Then I'm gonna close public comment so we can get into some of these issues with planning commission members. All right, hearing,
I'm sorry. I would just reserve the right to comment, if you go into that issue further, bringing up the issue of this fire notice or whatever.
yeah, if we get into that, obviously both you as representing the two parties, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm going to close public comment so we can get into this stuff. So we have Chelsea Hillcrest and the final site plan changes as described in the staff report. The two issues before us are the internal sidewalks and the removal of the retaining wall. The reason I remind you all of that is because there's a third issue bubbling up here that I think, and I'll have to talk to Attorney Thal about, but I'm not quite sure it's really before us and what we're deciding tonight, although I do want to address the fire authority letters. So the letter we received on August 18th, and maybe they can address this, talks about a class 3 barricade. And I'm not an official on what a class 3 barricade is, but what I'm going to ask them to comment on is really, what their feeling is on that transition. And more importantly, how is that any different than what we did down in the project we just approved, where we used a gate with a knockbox? And just, I don't know, is anyone from CAFA here? I think you were earlier.
Hi, Dave. Eric Stanley.
Hey, Eric.
So with that, a class 3 barricade is what we consider a permanent barricade. So that cannot be in due to the fact that the amount of residents that are within Hillcrest and Chelsea Springs. And then also there is a hydrant right on that corner that we would access for either Hillcrest or Chelsea Springs if fire were to occur. And having any type of barrier restricts time of us getting water supply, effectively fighting fire, and possibly even rescuing anyone that may be trapped in the buildings, because if I'm not correct, Chelsea Springs is a 2-story condominium. With that being said, that we, as the fire authority and having the adopted fire code, we do not want any type of barricade restricting us from that.
Okay. No, that helps. And it helps to explain the barricade and the class 3 designation. Thank you. And
Mr.
Yep, I was just going to turn to you.
Okay.
You read my mind.
So it's really not germane to the question at hand. I mean,
Right.
we're getting a little off of an applicant who's asked us to consider the removal of a sidewalks and a barrier, or sidewalks and a retaining wall, excuse me. The barrier is not the subject matter of the planning commission meeting tonight. And, just I'll just weigh in with my legal opinion on it, is that, obviously that's a private issue between the two condominium entities. They may have to do what they need to do to make a determination of what is there, but it also is a public safety issue too. And so I'm not the attorney for the authority, but for the fire authority. But if they're requiring some type of gate and knockbox at that location too, then I think that's probably what would end up being put in there. But ultimately, those two condominiums are going to have to discuss the issue. It doesn't have to be that it's free entry in between. That's between them. But if it's not free entry in between, then I think you're probably back at where the fire authority is requiring something like a gate and a Knox box. I can't speak for them. It's a totally separate issue than what we're dealing with tonight, but that's just my opinion on it. And I think both parties need to, consider their agreements. They have an agreement with regard to that access point. And ultimately that no matter what, it's going to be subject to the fire authority's determination of what they can do at that location.
Yeah, no, I thank you for saying that. That was my understanding as I looked at this issue. we do have to stay on what we're dealing with this evening, but I think that is something that the two parties have to work out. And quite frankly, the fire authority, you really should have them at the table while you're working that out. But putting us in there, I think, is like, if you have two dogs fighting, you don't want to put another dog in there. You just have to figure out how you resolve the issue. So that's my feeling on the matter. I don't know if planning commission members have any other thoughts, but that's how I would suggest that they proceed on those issues, and then we can deal with the other two issues before us. That makes sense to the planning commission?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take that huge applause of silence. That's what I call it when no one speaks. All right, so I'm going to dive into these two issues, the sidewalks, which isn't an easy issue, and the retaining wall. I do have a question on the retaining wall first. So I was driving back there, and when I look at it on paper versus looking at it in person, so the retaining wall, right now you have a hill that you've cut into that's just a dirt wall at this point. Is the idea that you wouldn't do the retaining wall, but you would just let that go naturally? Is that the idea, Joe?
Well, I don't know if anybody remembers the site. On the south side of the second building that is the child care center.
Yep.
There was a large spoils pile there that was about 30 feet high. That would have required a retaining wall. That spoils pile has been removed. So there is no need for a retaining wall. And when the 81 units goes in, there'll be some nice landscaping back there. It'll be all green. It's just better this way all the way around. Nobody wants to look like we're in some sort of a compound,
Yeah,
So
no,
that eliminated the need. If that helps you, that eliminated the need for a
that
retaining.
answers my question, because I drove back there the other day and I thought, what were we doing with the retaining wall anyway? There's nothing here. But then I thought I'm missing something. So I remember from the original discussion that it looked like it did. Okay, so that dirt was removed, and all right, I got you.
That's correct.
I got you. Let's just look at that issue alone first. So planning commission members have anything to ask about the retaining wall piece of this? Hearing none. Okay. Sue, I'm going to ask Sue. She said, did you mention anything on the retaining wall? You did. Second page of your letter. No issue with removal. All right. And the reason I was going to ask you was drainage, but you're saying positive drainage away from the building. Perfect. Okay. Let's get on to sidewalks. So the sidewalk part of this is the one that's most troubling, because we do require them land development standards. We've also required them for neighboring projects. On the flip side of this, so planning commission members know, I drove through there twice, got out, walked around the circle. It's real small. So I'm struggling with, yes, we've tried to be consistent on this, but also if you park a car in that driveway and you run a sidewalk through there, the car is over the sidewalk. It would have to be really small. There's a few people living in there right now. And when I drove through one time, their cars were in the driveway and literally had about a foot or two before they hit the street.
That is correct.
So I don't know, planning commission members, I don't know if you've driven through there or if you've been looking at this from a plan perspective, but any thoughts?
I do, Dave.
Yep.
I too have driven through there, and I know that we have required this in the other developments, at least on one side of the road, which would be here. My first question to this is, the need for the sidewalks was carefully discussed and deliberated upon during site plan reviews by the Planning Commission. So why then were the driveways not designed to sufficiently accommodate the sidewalks? That's one question I have. I know they're just sidewalks, and I know that there's a cost for construction and for the long-term maintenance of the sidewalks. One of the comments that we received from the public was water runoff and other environmental concerns. And then there's the aesthetics of the 17-unit neighborhood, which, as you said, is very.
Oh, I think I lost you. Just a second, Don. Let's give you a second. You there, Dawn, or did we lose you? Oh,
I apologize.
there you
Am
are.
I there?
Yep,
Okay.
you're back.
So where I was going with that is they are just sidewalks, but sidewalks are where neighbors pause to chat, kids learn to walk and ride a bike, where residents can engage in the Healthy Communities walking program, which this community has put a lot of effort into, especially as all the sidewalks interconnect throughout this pleasant suburban neighborhood. Chelsea Springs 1, Chelsea Springs 2, the upcoming Chelsea Square, and Chelsea Hillcrest. And another important issue too is where this, sidewalks are sometimes where residents recover from illness, surgery, and so on. And your own sidewalk in your own front yard is a pretty darn good thing to have if you're trying to rehabilitate safely. So it comes down to the need for sidewalks. Do we need them or don't we? If we remove the sidewalks in the development, it does indeed break the continuity and connectivity of the other developments where the PC consistently required ADA safe sidewalks, and they do provide a safe path from motorized traffic for residents and visitors to the neighborhood rather than walking directly in the roadway. So I think those sidewalks should remain. I hear what you're saying about when a car is in the driveway, it then is only a foot or two before it hits the street. But that 2 feet may be just enough room to get around a car.
Yeah, and I think I just lost you again, Don. Oh. Yeah, I think you said it really well. I think you've highlighted both the needs side of this even better than I was even thinking of it. But I guess my next question is actually to Sue. When I looked at your letter, you talked about at least constructing it through to the mailbox. But yet sidewalks are a land development standard. So I didn't know if you had any advice on how this is weighed either way.
Sure. In my letter, I also, took into account that the portion of Chelsea Springs just to the north of here does not have sidewalks. And, it's a small area, a small number of units, that type of thing. This also is kind of like it's not a dead end because it has a circular roadway pattern, but it's a very limited, it's not like it's the Coliseum Drive that more vehicles are going to be on as the phases develop. This is a corner of the community in this area. The reason in my letter that I highlighted all of the green sidewalk, and I want to say that they have constructed the sidewalk that goes parallel to Coliseum Drive, and they have constructed the ramp for the crosswalk over Coliseum Drive. So really what I'm asking for in my letter is for a sidewalk that reaches into this community so that someone in a wheelchair, someone, pushing a stroller would be able to get off of the roadways and onto the sidewalk prior to the Coliseum intersection where, more traffic would be. So it's a small number of dwelling units, like I said, and we did allow no sidewalks in the area just to the north of this. And I do think that the interconnectivity to the sidewalks along Coliseum Drive is really important. So I was, suggesting or recommending from my point of view that, that at a minimum, this portion of the sidewalk should be constructed. And now I understand that the mailboxes were situated a little bit differently. They are, I've seen a picture of how they are right alongside the curb. So there's no need for the sidewalk on the south side of the road there. But that's why I was recommending that portion of the sidewalk to still be constructed, but possibly not the rest of it.
Yeah, no, and that's helpful. I appreciate that. That actually, you just answered two of my questions. So, because I was out there and I was looking at the mailbox and looking at your letter and then realizing that, yeah, something had changed there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If I look at the property to the north, it's a similar situation. It's very tight in there. And so there wasn't a sidewalk. But then I look at, some of the other properties have a different layout. This really is, it is a corner, sort of, it's stuck in its own world, right? Like it comes off Coliseum and then it has its own little circle. In your comment about there is a sidewalk there on Coliseum Drive and it does end at that corner and has a ramp into the street. I do agree with you that if I were to come into this neighborhood, that's a bad place to sort of exit the sidewalk, right? Because you're still out there in the Coliseum traffic way. But the better way would be to exit as you got closer into the circle. So I do like what you did, at least with the green extension from that corner into the first corner of Duncan. But anyway, that's my thought. Other planning commission members, thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Thal. Is there any ADA compliance issues we need to be concerned about with this for the Americans with Disabilities Act?
You would not be required to have a sidewalk in there under ADA.
Yeah, that would just handle, if you had the sidewalk, it would have to have the right approaches, right?
It'd have to be ADA compliant.
Right.
But many communities develop, there's a lot of different opinions on sidewalks. Some communities don't want any sidewalks because of the maintenance issues associated with them. Others promote sidewalks and, so it's not even across the board. But yes, if you do put in the sidewalk, it's got to be ADA compliant when it's put in.
So legally or whatever, to get around the neighborhood, if there's no sidewalks, do they have to walk on the street or can you walk across the neighboring lots? Is there going to be dirt trails where people walk?
I mean, you can probably address that. It's maybe a rhetorical question, but you could look at other places that don't have sidewalks. The normal experience is people walk in the street.
Yeah, I thought of that too. Because I'm a grass snob, right? I don't want people trampling through my grass, right? So I thought about that, but then I drove out there and I realized that postage stamp is a big way of describing this lawn, right? That's it's very, very small, and it's I can't remember if there's a tree in the lawn or not, but anyway, it's the point where I think someone would have to deliberately walk through the lawn. They could literally just walk from driveway to driveway. But yeah, there's a difference between looking at the plan on the sheet. I think, yeah, sidewalk fits. And then I go there and physically look at it, and there's just a difference. So. Leah, Tom, anything on this? Sandy? It's a tough one.
Well, I have been out there, but it's been a while. And so I can't remember exactly what it looks like. But thinking about having people living with no sidewalk, all I can think of are like, if you have a toddler, at least a sidewalk is some way to try to guide them, to keep them out of the street. But it was mentioned that one of the nearby, and I didn't write it down, areas doesn't have a sidewalk either. And then I hear that we don't have, that it isn't a requirement to have a sidewalk. Well, now I have to think about it. It doesn't seem as heinous as I thought in the beginning.
It is a land development standard, so I would say it's, we do look at it in this township as a requirement, but I never allow a rule to overrule common sense, and so that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, I don't know if,
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on, Mike.
yeah, I don't know. I
Mike,
was-
go first, and then I'll hit you up after Mike.
Yeah, I was looking at, Sue's drawing here, and if you took that green line, right, and you say you moved it through the backyards of the property, is that another alternative, right?
Yeah, on one side, but that doesn't get you on the other side, and it doesn't help you get from your car.
Yeah, but for people that want to get out and walk, or, just use it as a means to get around, it keeps them off the street, right?
Right. Craig, I think you were going to comment on the north property because you live there.
just
So
a
real
point of
quick.
information, we do have a sidewalk on the one side where the townhouse is. Okay, this was required when this was built to have a sidewalk in. On the other side, there is no sidewalk, but there's also no parking for cars because we have the car situation. I think this was addressed a little bit in your email, but point of information, we do have a sidewalk on the side by the township, townhouse.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
Craig. Yep. Thanks, Craig. Okay. Tom, Leah, anything on this?
Yes, I still kind of go along with feeling it needs to be sidewalks there just for safety reasons. I kind of feel that Dawn hit on that pretty well, how I feel also. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Tom, you've been too quiet. I'm going to go after you.
Okay, well, part of me says we need sidewalks. The other part says we don't. I'm sort of stuck here. If we should have them or shouldn't have them. I guess I'm sort of leaning to it just, I don't know, having sidewalks there, if there's no one parked there, that you can walk through there, or you walk around like at Bridgetown condominiums, were basically the same thing. Without sidewalks there, I don't know. My parents had a place in Bridgetown for a while, and I always thought the sidewalks were nice, and that little short street in there where you're not supposed to drive up and down, there were sidewalks on one side, and the other side was the back of the houses. That just didn't look quite right either. So I guess I know the lots are very small. There isn't a lot there, but in the same breath, I would like to see sidewalks there. I'm torn in half about this.
Me too.
Yeah, Dave, I guess the other thing to consider, if you put the sidewalks in, and say a car is blocking part of it, it's still going to be paved or concrete. You can walk south of it, right, to still get around it.
Yeah, you could.
So.
Going through, making sure we didn't miss anything in any of the reports. Any other comments from Carol that we're not looking at, other than she did provide us the minutes from when we approved this project, which was helpful. I do have a question for Mr. Trupiano, which is that middle section. That was going to be the rain garden, which didn't seem to be the rain garden yet. Is that still to be developed? It's the middle
Were you
of
asking me a question?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the middle section there where you the island is what we call it in the middle. Is that has that been developed yet? I mean, is that the way it's going to be? When I drove through there, it just looked different than the plan.
Yeah, well, all the plants that were required were planted there. And
Okay.
what we decided to do for the sake of keeping the fees low, we're gonna let things grow naturally. We planted wildflower seeds, we planted all the required plants, but we did not irrigate the pond. And it gets plenty wet and it's just gonna be natural. The wildflowers will come up twice a year. It's not gonna be something they're gonna have to maintain. You have to remember, my primary concern is from my residents. I know some of them are listening in right now, and I hope some of them chime in, but they're the ones that are going to be utilizing the site for walking, and there are no interconnecting walkway paths that lead up to the site. Most of the walks that were initially the initial plan were dead-end sidewalks that would stop onto an adjacent property that there were no other sidewalks connecting to it. So and there's very little green in the site as it is. So to put a 5-foot walk in there and just to put all that concrete just didn't make sense to me. I spoke with Sue Dickinson about this at length the other day, and we agreed that the only additional sidewalk that should go in, and I hope she agrees with me on this because I thought that's what we spoke about, was the sidewalk that connects from Coliseum along the south side of the walkout. So if people were coming into the site, they wouldn't have to come in off of the main road. They could come in off of a sidewalk. But there is a steep boulder retaining wall there. So I suggested that rather than run it a 5-foot walk close to that drop off area, that we could run the sidewalk next to the curb. And that way they'd be away from that steep drop, in case somebody was with a stroller or walking or they tripped or something. But and just quickly on the mailbox, I thought of my residents having to get out of their car in the middle of the snow or rain or whatever, having to get their mail. So we made a field decision to put the mailbox so they could access it from their vehicle. So that just made sense to me. But you run into these things, so we make changes in the field. But those driveways are so short, and you got to remember something else. Those are 1-car garages. Okay, they're not 2.5, 3-car garages. So just about everybody has 2 cars. We have plenty of guest parking or overflow parking, but it's still not enough if everybody has 2 cars. So if you go back, if you drive in there when people are home from work, there's cars in the driveways, and a lot of people haven't even, there's a few people haven't moved in yet. So it just doesn't make sense to put dead end sidewalks in that they have to maintain. They're going to have to plow. They're going to have to salt. And I know my residents all had a chance to speak. I think all of them would tell you they don't want sidewalks in their subdivision, and they like their low fees, and they'll stay low for several reasons, including the rain garden pond. That's going to be basically a natural landscape. So, does that answer your question a little bit? Or
Yeah, no, that helps. Absolutely. The rain garden is what I was thinking about. And yeah, I mean, I did talk to another resident there who similarly wasn't really all about the sidewalks because of the yards are so small to begin with. But yeah, okay.
wanted to just maximize the green space that they have, which is very little as it is. But imagine putting a 5-foot walk in front of those buildings. They wouldn't have any green left, and all their fees would have to go up dramatically to maintain those walks, to salt them, to plow them, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully some of my residents will speak up here and they'll tell you their thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Since we're struggling with this, I know the public hearing part's over, but if you do have something you want to say, all ears for the second, and then we'll move right into decision making.
Hi, my name is Irene Durkee, and I'm a resident here. And I just want to ask Robert Thal, did you say that you're a representative of the fire department?
No, I'm not a representative of the fire department. I represent the township.
Okay, and would you consider there, for not having sidewalks, would you consider that that would be a safety hazard?
It's 100% policy and community to community issue. Some I can't address whether you believe or whether the planning commissioners believe it's a safety issue or not. They can address that, but it's not, from a legal standpoint, it's more policy.
Is there somebody here right now that, from the fire department or whatever, to say that this is safe? Has somebody inspected that area, our area?
Hi, Irene.
Well-
This is Eric from the fire department. So in regards to sidewalks for the fire department aspect, we don't generally look at the sidewalks as being safe or unsafe. We basically look at building structures and stuff like that. So that would be more up to the board to determine whether or not that would be a policy for them for safety or not on the fire department.
Okay, I believe that then there are no safety issues, because we have to consider, number one, we want safety for all the residents. If this is not a problem, then why have sidewalks? I have seen people walking around with their, what do you call it? That are handicapped, and they're doing fine walking around, the circle. And I think if you put a sidewalk, it would be hard for them to get on the sidewalk and then get off. At least it's all level. So I am for no sidewalks. As long as it's not a safety issue, I am not for sidewalks.
Appreciate it, Maria. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, and that's that's the thing I'm struggling with. So yeah, I agree. Other planning commission members, any comments, or someone want to suggest maybe we make a motion or move forward, or how do you want to? I see we're divided down the middle, so I don't want to.
I'd like to say that we've been living here since last September, and of course we've been the only ones. But as everybody has been moving in, it looks generally safe, and I really believe that it would be safe. If I didn't think so, believe me, I would say, let's have the sidewalks. So as a Christian and as a person that has a conscience, I believe that we don't need sidewalks.
Thank you, Irene. I appreciate it.
Can you hear me?
Yep, real quick, Diane.
We live in Chelsea Hillcrest as well. And I would come down on the same side as Irene wholeheartedly. As you said, when you drove through, it is just a very quiet little tiny oval. There is not a lot of traffic back here. It's very quiet. And a sidewalk would basically, for all of us living here, mean no yard whatsoever, as Joe said. And for our all over quality of life and living, I just can't see the need or the worry or any reason why we would be required to have them in this setting.
I appreciate that, and I'm thankful the residents spoke up. Sue, comment from you. I saw your hand up, Sue.
Thank you. Now I don't know how to take it down.
I'll do it.
But-
There you go.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to state that I'm looking on my computer at an overall aerial map, and I just want to remind everyone that this development did provide sidewalks along Coliseum. And with what Joe was saying, he and I did agree that if he brought the sidewalk into the site, that he could place it closer to the roadway or right along the back of the curb was fine with me, as long as the ramp was ADA per ADA guidelines down at the where it goes into the Duncan Drive. But I just I'm sure you're concerned about setting a precedent. And so I guess we should, you know, look at the issues as far as that goes. And I just wanted to say that they did provide sidewalks along the, what I would call the main drive. And I don't know if that helps you feel like you're not setting a precedent of no sidewalks.
Yeah, no, it does. And you did hit the nail on it. That is something that concerns me because we do have other projects going. For example, Chelsea Square, we did require them to do it. And I think at first they didn't want to do it. And I'm looking back at their, I mean, it's a totally different development, right? I mean, you've got 81 units in a large circle with two different drives coming into it. I mean,
Right. And at the end of a cul-de-sac that could be very circular, you know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know which direction people are coming from. So there would be quite a bit more traffic on that
Right.
circular roadway than this one.
Yeah, and I, you know, for members, planning commission, if we just say, yeah, we're gonna move forward and approve the request, you know, I would certainly note that the reasoning for approving it is that this very unique small development with essentially weighing the balance between not having any yard or green space or driveway that wasn't affected through by a sidewalk. That's, I mean, that's a given, but yeah, okay. Well, I think what I'm going to do is, as planning commission members have anything further they want to talk about, otherwise I'm going to construct a motion, and if it doesn't go, then we'll do a different one. So, all right. Let's try this. How about if we did approve the requested amendments for removal of the sidewalk and the retaining wall, and note that the reasoning for removal of the sidewalk, reasoning for removal of the retaining walls, that the previous, I don't know what to call it, the previous pile of dirt really, it no longer is there. And then the reason for the sidewalk removal would be that this is a unique situation where there's a small area between the front of the home and the street with a very small driveway that would overtake the sidewalk. That would be my reasoning, but.
Mr.
that would-
Chairman,
Yeah.
are you including that they would still construct the part of the sidewalk?
Yeah.
As identified by the engineer?
Yeah, so that's this next part of my statement. So I was trying to think, so then I would base it on completing the sidewalk that exists at the corner of Coliseum and extending that up as indicated on the engineer's letter dated September 17th.
And I'm in complete agreement with that. I would put the ADA ramp in as well, so that we have a sidewalk along the south side of the walkout building. So that sidewalk would basically take them to the corner of Duncan Drive and Drive. They'd have a nice way into the
right
in any jeopardy of traffic. Right, the one part of the sidewalk would be right next to the curb. And it would be the 5-foot walk, a regulation walk for similar to your standards.
Correct. Correct. But if I make that motion, do I even have a second? If not, we'll do a different motion. Dawn has a question. Dawn.
I do have a question. I don't remember who it was that suggested that in the future, should a sidewalk be desired by either the current residents or future residents, that there would be some way of making that a possibility for them. Is that, should that be part of our decision-making? That in the future, if there is some identified need for sidewalks, they would be placed? Or is that going too far?
Could I address it quick?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's too far, but go ahead.
So they would be able to request a special, if you had over 50% of the properties that requested, they could put in a 50% of the frontage. They could request a special assessment to put in the sidewalk at a later date. So if a majority of the people in the subdivision want a sidewalk, they can the township can do a special assessment to put in the sidewalk for them.
No, wait a minute. I didn't understand. Who would put the sidewalk in for them?
So, okay, so under statute, the township can put in the sidewalk for them as a special assessment. Now, they pay for the sidewalk, the residents would. The township's not going to pay for it. But if more than 50% of the residents in that subdivision want a sidewalk in the future, they can petition the township to do a special assessment whereby they'll all be assessed a fee to install a sidewalk. So it's kind of a majority rule in the future in that subdivision. If they want a sidewalk, they can get a sidewalk.
Thank you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, we didn't have to do this in this motion order. So if someone wants to make a motion to the contrary, because I didn't hear anybody jumping up for a second on that. But,
Second. I'll second, Dave.
Oh, Sandy wanted a second.
Yes.
I don't want to presume anything. So I have no problem if the other one was first. So, okay, so we made the motion and seconded. Again, the motion is to approve the request from the applicant for the removal of the retaining wall and to also approve removing the sidewalk except for the section labeled in green on the engineer's review of September 17th with the stipulations of the ADA accessible portion. And that would be it. So it's been moved and seconded, and now we can have any other discussion on the motion. If not, we'll do a quick vote, and then if we have to go a different direction, we go a different direction. So, Tom?
Yes.
Dawn?
Have they approved the site plan for the 81 units?
Oh, can we mute here a second? Okay, Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Mike?
Yes.
And Sandy?
Yes.
Well, I didn't expect that, but yes, motion is adopted. All right. And are we clear, Mr. Trupiano, about what we decided?
I'm crystal clear on it. I know exactly what I need to do. I spoke to my engineer about it, and I spoke to Sue Dickinson about it. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll get that other sidewalk in, then, you know, we'll finish the landscaping, we'll finish the project up, and we'll move along.
Thank you. Let's see, do we have communications? We do have communications. Thank you to everyone participating this evening. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank you. I'm gonna miss some folks, but all very helpful having you at the ready for these questions. I appreciate it. Carol, what am I missing? Communication, discussing the zoning map. Are you muted? Oh, she may have dropped out. Here comes Robert. He's coming back. Hold on, I think Carol had to drop.
Yeah, I'm back.
She's back. All right, Carol, we're on communication.
Okay.
Zoning map.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry, I missed the whole vote. I don't know what happened, so I'll catch up on that later. Anyway, so the zoning map, for October, we have a rezoning request for Conway Road, which is inlandish, 20 acres. And I thought instead of having the zoning map for the October meeting, perhaps we could try to target for November. We've had so many pretty intense projects. So I thought it was kind of cumbersome to include map rezoning ratification for October. Perhaps we could then schedule it for November. Hopefully, we won't have anything for November, so we don't get too confused. We've had a lot of projects.
Yeah, I would agree. So, yeah, and I agree with that. We don't want to do the zoning map changes at the same time we're doing a zoning change. It's just too confusing for an applicant's project. So this is the Conway Road project where there's a request to rezone from ag to low density residential, correct?
Correct.
And there was a township board meeting prior to this meeting, which I did not attend, on open space. Does any of that affect that request?
I don't know what that has any effect on that. The rezoning is a standalone. So the ordinance is kind of standalone. It has to be corrected since the ordinance is not compliant with state law. And they're working on trying to get something that's going to be acceptable to everyone, apparently. But this rezoning is standalone.
Yeah, and it's Patrick's request. Patrick,
Right. Yep.
but you had something to comment, Patrick?
Yeah, I can make a comment on it. Just on a personal level, it was never my intention since the beginning of this to move the property out of ag. It's always been my intention to make it compatible with the ag zoning by utilizing the open space ordinance. That would still be my preferable approach. I did put in the application for rezoning in parallel, mostly because I felt that the open space ordinance was not going anywhere. It'd been dormant for about 6 months. Now it looks like there's some motion on the open space ordinance, and I'm not quite sure what to think at the moment. But I just wanted to inform you of what my personal preferences were. I believe in maintaining it as ag, and as everybody knows, I would like to have it actively used agriculturally for more than 50% of it in perpetuity. So that's my preference by far.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up, Patrick, because we're going to put you on the agenda for October. But if you're not on the agenda, we do have another item. So just stay cognizant of that. We do have cutoff times for the agenda. So just respect that we do have this other item to take up too. So if you do decide to wait, then let her know as soon as you can, okay?
Yes, I understand that. And Carol has kept me updated on these timing considerations as well. And I will keep that in mind in short order.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so as of right now, we will have this rezoning request up next month, and then we'll deal with the zoning map in the future. Okay, and I assume we're continuing with Zoom. We're following the board. The board's continuing that way, Sandy, or?
Yes,
Okay,
we're following Washtenaw County.
that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure I checked with my board member. All right.
So, Dave, the only thing I want to add is you received communication from a resident with concerns regarding what was going on at Robin Hills.
Yep, that was next on my my list. So we did receive an email. This gentleman had emailed us last summer in similar fashion. I don't know if Kurt Kosek is still on, but he last year had gone out to speak with him and also to assess. I've been out there to Robin Hills, actually very close to the time that the gentleman had emailed in, and you know, I didn't think they were beyond the parameters we sent. I haven't stood where he was standing, so I can't say that for sure, but I know I've heard from other planning commission members who also have been keeping an eye on this too. So with that, that's the concerns I know about.
Dave, do you know if they got the monitoring equipment in place?
They do. In fact, Adam provided the monitoring for those evenings in question, and they were within range, actually well below. So
was it auditable? The recordings from a perspective of, was it, you know, someone just didn't cook one up?
No, I mean, he's got, data for every night you can look at. I mean, I don't, I guess you could cook them up if you wanted, but again, I've been there in person. I didn't, it didn't seem, because you could be there and you could take a walk to the edge of the property and listen. I did that. And but again, I'm not standing in that person's driveway, so I don't know.
David,
Yeah, Leah.
I was out there also, and you could not hear the band in the parking lot. I checked that out. How far does this neighbor live as the crow flies? Would it be a mile?
No, I don't think it's a mile.
No.
The letter said he lived right next
No,
door.
no, he is actually, his property is fronts off of McKinley.
Oh, it's off of McKinley.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
So
guess
he's on the back side of it, on the McKinley Road side.
he's definitely the closest, and I'd say he's 200-300 yards away from the, where they hold their Thursday night events.
Okay. And did you went out there last year, right?
Yeah.
And met with? Okay.
And the neighbors in the area. He seems to be the only one that's has an issue with the noise, but he's also a shift worker. So, he sleeps at odd times of the day, and he is the closest one to the barn.
So the monitoring that Adam provided us is done right off of the porch or shortly thereafter. Is there any way he could monitor closer to the corner of the property where that person is?
I seem to remember that was the requirement, that he set up monitoring around the perimeter. And I don't know if that was ever set up. The monitoring that Adam's doing might just be a handheld unit on the porch, or, walking 100 yards and taking a reading.
Yeah, I recall that too, Kurt. They were supposed to have it at the edge, as Dave suggested.
Yeah, they did have that. So maybe what we do is we go back and ask Adam, or Carol, if you could ask Adam, that we discussed this. I don't know if he's still on. He was on earlier, but that we discussed this, and we're just, the only way to truly get at this is to monitor it, at the boundary, right? You lose you, Carol?
Yes, I can get back with Adam on that and ask him to provide that information for the next meeting. It would be difficult to do. I think they're not going to be outside very much anymore.
Well, I know that's the other issue, but
That's kind of a difficult question, I guess.
yeah, I mean, if he were to have another event, maybe he could take the golf cart or walk out there in that corner and take a couple readings. I mean, sound travels, we know, but how it travels, we don't always know. But I mean, my experience is that he's well within his range, but if he could provide data to do that, then that helps. All right, any other questions, comments from planning commission members? Next meeting, October, anyone not able to attend? We have a quorum.
I probably won't be here.
That's Leah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I forgot one thing. Is it okay to ask Rob a question, Rob Thal, about that barrier between the two developments?
Sure, you could do it offline.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to email me about it, and then the township wants me to involve myself, I can, but it's really not appropriate for the planning commission at this point.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll send you an email. I just want to make sure it was on the record and it was a recorded conversation that the fire department chief stated unequivocally that he doesn't want a barrier of any kind there for public safety. So if that goes on the record, that's good enough for me, and I'll just take it from there, but I will send you an email.
Yeah, his comments will be part of the minutes, and he certainly did say that. So, we'll try to capture that as best we can, and then this was recorded, so if that helps.
Thanks very much, guys. Talk to you later.
And then the board obviously has to deal with this next, right?
Correct.
All right. I don't have anything further. We good? All right. Thank you to everyone who helped out this evening, and I will make a motion to adjourn. And I
I'll
hear a
second it.
second from Leah. Tom,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Leah,
Yes.
chair votes yes.
Yes,
Mike,
sir.
Sandy,
Yes.
thank you all. Kathleen, you have a question? What was your question?
No, I'm sorry. And I was trying to raise my hand. It appeared to me someone on one of the videos had their hand up, like literally had their physical hand up, and I wasn't sure if they had a comment or if you were at an appropriate time to take a comment from public, but I saw, and maybe she left.
Yeah,
She
I
left.
did.
There was two of us.
Oh, okay. I didn't see her, physically see her. That's why I tell people to yell at me because I can't keep track of all the faces. Okay,
Well, no worries. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
no worries. We're all set. All right, thank you, everybody.
Hey, Dave, just an FYI, I seem to remember that they did have a monitoring device out by the M52 line
Mhm.
that stayed
Yeah.
up all the time out there.
Yeah, I did too. And when he sent us the email with the monitors, it was just off of the deck. And I didn't know whether those weren't live that are out on the boundary, but yeah.
Could have
I
been
mean,
lost in transition to management, right?
Well, sound could travel one direction better than it can travel another direction, you know, if it's bouncing
Right.
off a hill or something. So, okay. We'll
Okay.
ask.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You guys.
Goodbye.